Hi fellow developers, today I wanted to talk about the OnDestroy event because it is one of the lifecycle events, but is one that I struggled a lot with in the beginning. I understood the concept, but it was not really clear to me what actions should I drag onto that event. And so I searched around, I asked some questions, and this is what I've learned. Let's begin. So first, looking at the life cycle of an application, Outsystems has here this diagram, and basically if you are in a screen and you click to go to like a details page, the destination screen starts to load in the background. And you are still looking at your screen, so you still see the same screen, but then the transition happens. And the OnDestroy lives here, so right after or at the end of the transition to the new screen. At least that's what Outsystems says here on the documentation. They say that the event happens when the transition to the new screen ends. And in case of blocks, it happens before the block is removed from the DOM. So you are in a screen, you click to go to a different one, and when the transition ends, the OnDestroy event is run. And it is also important to understand that this event runs from a top-down order. So first the screen and then the nested blocks inside of it. And I can show you that really quickly. In this page, I've added a console log for the OnDestroy of the screen, then for the layout, and then for the menu bar. And so if I navigate to a different screen, you will see here on the console that we have the OnDestroy of the screen, then the block layout, and then the block menu. Cool. Some considerations that Outsystems advises is that if you are selecting elements, please use the ActiveScreen CSS class, because you need to ensure that you are operating on the screen being destroyed. Since we have two screens, as we have seen, it could happen that you would be selecting some element, but you were selecting the elements from the destination screen, not the current screen. And that would be a problem. Then the other consideration is that you should keep the action simple, avoid server requests, so that you don't delay the removal of the screen or block. And when exactly should you use these events? Well, Outsystems has these examples. The first one is to call the OnDestroy action of third-party components. To clean the DOM, so removing elements from the DOM before running a plugin again, and then to remove JavaScript listeners. I have a few examples that should cover more or less all of these scenarios. So let's jump right into them. The first one is to call the destroy action of third-party components. And the example I have comes from Outsystems themselves. So here they have this layout top menu. It is the one from Outsystems UI, and you can see that they already have here the OnDestroy event. So when I scaffolded this application, these layouts came with already this OnDestroy. But if it was not here, to add the OnDestroy event, all you have to do is to click on the events and then click on destroy. Since I already had here the client action, it has already some code inside, and the first is the console log that you saw, and the second one is this layout destroy. And this comes built in with Outsystems UI, and the only thing that you need to do is quite simple, is to just drag it to your OnDestroy event. So in the case that you have a third-party component that has a destroy action, the only thing you have to do is to add the OnDestroy event, and then inside of it run the action that they provided. And you don't even have to know what is happening under the hood inside of this action, you just need to run it. Then the second example is to clean the DOM. And I have here an example. This is a demo application of a component that I've built, and it is simply a table expandable. It's just my take on the table expandable. So if you click on the line of the table, it will open up and have here some content. And if I show you the code, you will see that it is quite simple. We have all the lines that Outsystems has built, basically. And below each line, I have created a new row with one column inside that spans for the entire table. But I need to remove these lines because if, for example, I searched or I clicked on the sort of the table, the lines created by Outsystems would disappear, but my expandable content lines would still exist, would still be there, just on the bottom of the table. So they would be ruining the UI and possibly the logic as well. And so what do? It is not complicated, but basically we have this placeholder here for the content that we want to be expanded below the table. And when it is mounted, so when it is created, we have the code that will create the new row with the content inside. And you don't need to understand this code. The only thing you need to know is that I'm inserting a row in the table body. And I save that row in this variable, insert row. And at the end of my code, I'm simply passing this out as a parameter. So you have here this output parameter of type object, and I just assign it to the row that I just created. So it is an object that has the row that was created. Then I save that object in the scope of my component. It's also an object, so it's just the same variable, but on the scope of the component. And on the OnDestroy event, I pass that object in, and what do is simply removing it from the DOM. So what I'm doing is exactly what our system says here. I'm cleaning up the DOM before I can run the plugin again. We can think of this also for things like Google Tag Manager or some third-party integrations with chats, stuff like that. At least that's how I interpret this line. But basically it's just cleaning your DOM, removing elements that are there that shouldn't be there anymore. And the last one is to remove JavaScript listeners. And I have here a bit of a forced example, I would say. It has a form. Let's imagine you have a form and you have an amount of time to fill in the form and hit save. In my case, I just added 10 seconds so that it is really quick and we can do the demo quickly. But at the end, your page would reload because your session has expired and you would see that message. And if you stay in the page, you can imagine the interval is running, so this can happen. But if I go to a different page, since this is React, the interval is still there and it's still counting, and you would have the reload of the page anyway. So it is really important for you to clear those intervals and listeners. Let's start with the interval. Here in the employee detail, I have the onReady, and onReady, I created the action for the interval. It is just counting down, and if the time is up, it will just clear the interval, send the feedback message, and reload the page. That's what we have seen. But what is important here for the OnDestroy is that I'm passing out this interval object, just like I did for the table row. So I have here the parameters interval being set to the interval that was just created. Then, as we did before, we save that object in the context of the screen. Then in the OnDestroy, we pass that object and we simply do the clear interval. And with this, we don't have the issue anymore of the interval continuing to count down even if you go to a different page. And the same goes for click events. Here again, simple example, I have an on-click event on this icon. Here on the onReady, sorry, I have this set click, and what it does is that it gets that icon by ID, and then it adds the event listener on click, and what it does is it runs the refresh action. And I don't know if you notice, but you can just call Outsystems actions inside of your JavaScript. You just need to click on them, but be aware that if you just double click on these actions here, you will get these two parentheses because you would be running that action. So when the code reaches this line, just run this action. But in this case, we don't want to run the action. We just want to say that that is the action that should run if the element is clicked. So we need to remove the parentheses because it is not time to call the action. It is just a parameter that goes inside of the add event listener. So no parentheses here. And then the OnDestroy will be really simple. So here I don't even have to pass anything besides the icon ID because I can do the remove event listener, click and pass the same action, and this will remove the listener. Yeah, that's about it for what I wanted to share with you today. Hope this video was helpful, and if you have any questions, yeah, feel free to reach out, and yeah, see you on the next one. Thank you.